Okay, so we're going to briefly read this one, but this is mostly going to be about the theft of funds, the breach of contract, and so on and so forth, about the appropriation of my funds. So we will kind of ignore the other part. We will kind of maybe briefly read over it, but we won't go into great detail about that particular part of the assault made by the city council worker until a later date, which is going to be like another video specifically on that point by itself. Of course, this is another letter for another MP, and they put in a consent form as well, and they received slightly different information as well. Dear whoever, thank you for your inquiry dated 7th of November 2024 on behalf of X regarding his account and debts with Aberdeen City Council. You can confirm that X former rent account for held a credit balance of 217. The credit balance has occurred due to a standing order of rent, particularly for that address, that failed to cancel a standing order, an arrangement between a person and their bank, which I've already stated. That's my bad, and already stated. I contacted the city council, they offered my refund or my ability to cancel my standing order. Problem should have been solved. So, I had established the standing order 2024 with the first payment commencing on the 6th of October 2024. The standing order payments were for £10 every 2 weeks and were paid into his rent account. An outstanding balance gradually occurred for X address as the payment for £10 every 2 weeks did not cover the £10 per week. Heating charges after tenancy ended 13th of March 2022. The total arrears balance was £926. Now, this is a direct contradiction to the Stage 2 complaint response actually received from Aberdeen City Council, which we went over earlier on in this segment, whereas it stated the remained for the rent amount or whatever for the council tax was £741. And for the exact date, or same date should I say, one statement says it's for £741 and the other statement states it is for £926. On the 7th of July, I contacted the customer support centre and set up a direct debit for £20 per month to reduce a clear and standing balance for his former tenancy arrears. He was advised during this call to cancel his standing order, which is actually false because in several instances on these letters it states that I refused to give my bank details. It also stated that I refused to give any form of information regarding that particular account or whatever, and I received several threats when I contacted them through phone, stating that if I did not make a direct debit payment set up, that I could essentially incur more charges. But at that time, I said several times to Scott & Co when I contacted them about the issue, I stated that I would not do direct payment anymore because quite simply I could not trust it, and the second fact is my money kept fluctuating for being in at a certain day and then out at a certain day, and I couldn't really control it. So ensuring to be able to pay a certain amount of payment per month or per every 2 weeks, I wanted to do it manually to ensure that I had the money. So sometimes I made a double payment on 1 week. On one payment I made a £700 payment towards the council tax. On another, I made a £200 payment as well, because especially when I was told that I was going to get a refund of the £200 and odd, I said to myself that the money I was going to get, I could use that to pay for my gas and electrical bill for that month, and then for the £200 extra I would have spare in my bank account, I could just use that to pay an extra amount on the council tax debt that I have. So this is another contradiction of basically them saying I did one thing, and then in another letter or another email they're stating that I did the complete opposite. Because how could I set up a direct payment system if I'm refusing to give my bank details? It's not physically possible. You cannot set up a direct debit payment if you do not give your bank details. So, on the 7th of July, contact our customer support centre to set up direct payments, £20 every month, to reduce the clear outstanding balance for his former tenancy arrear. He was advised during this call to cancel his standing order of £10 every 2 weeks with his bank due to the direct debit being established. The direct debit payment for the £20 per month entered in March of 2024, however, did not cancel the standing order, which continued the 1st of July 2024, leading to the credit balance. I could not cancel the standing order for that particular payment because I was told over and over and over again that it was a court order for me to make sure and I made that payment, and they refused a refund. If I chose to accept to take that cancel standing order, would I been in legal trouble? Would I have had then a warrant for the court system to go there to appear because I would be in a breach of a court order? Or would I have basically been incurred another form of increase in debt? Because whenever you miss a payment or so on and so forth, you usually incur a bloody charge, which they already tried to do. Because when I stated to them, especially Scot and Co, that they stated on 1 month that I did not make a payment during that month, and which was a complete lie because the city council made a payment on my behalf. I even received an email stating that they paid Scot and Co on my behalf with my name, my address, with my bank details. So if this was correct, I wouldn't have missed a payment for that particular month or that week. I honestly can't remember where that email is though, and I would have to dredge through it. So if I do have to find it eventually, I will find it. Contact our customer support centre on the 17th of June 2024 to request a refund in the credit balance of 217. We advised that we would check if we had any other debts outstanding before we would be able to issue a refund. You issued an email stating I could cancel my standing order, yet once again saying that they have to check if they can essentially give me a refund, which would essentially be me cancelling my standing order, yet they also said there that I never cancelled my standing order. And that is simply, like I said before, is because I've been threatened by them before, stating that it was a court order, and if I was in breach of that court order, I could incur extra charges. Right, so page 2 of this. Check carried out identified an outstanding balance of council tax, and therefore the credit balance is 270. Former renting account was transferred as pay recovery procedures. We can confirm that there has been no overpayment made to Scot & Co, even though we've seen the email, or the email that was sent by Scot & Co saying that the Aberdeen City Council refunded the money back to themselves. I also received this information through a phone call, hence why I requested to see the data in the first place. And it was Aberdeen City Council that requested the money back because they tried to pay a debt that was already paid in full. We are sorry that that this is not the outcome we would like. However, having reviewed the matter, we can confirm that we have correctly followed our policies, bull crap, and procedures, which is also bull crap because they're in breach of the complaints procedure by refusing to take action when I have asked several times to take my stage 1 complaints to stage 2. I asked between, like I said, I think between 5 and 10 times. It took them around 2 months to finally take my stage 1s to stage 2. And then they even extended the time period for another month, which is entirely a breach of the complaints procedure. If they do follow the procedure, that is absolute bullcrap, because that is a complete contradiction to actual facts. Right. Anyway, I think we're done. I think I've got as much information as possible without regurgitating it. But I did unfortunately regurgitate a certain amount of information because I had to go over emails that I've received from, between local councillors, MPs and MSPs, and essentially shown that there was discrepancies essentially between each one of those. For example, of that one where it's saying there's, I had money due for over 900 and odd pounds, and then for the exact same date, I had 700 and something pounds owed instead, which is a complete bloody contradiction. So, we're finished with this particular section, which pretty much covers the theft and misappropriation of funds, and I think the next section for the next video will essentially cover the assault made by the Aberdeen City Council member and the breach of Article 8 of the Human Rights Act when he read my private documents. There's also within the letters, I might have already read part of it already, where in one email it states that my letter was on my covered as such, and then they read it, and then in another letter it stipulates that they stated, I think it was, that it was on the floor and I read it to them, which is a complete contradiction. So you can see just entirely with any of these communications between each of the emails and each of the conversations, they seem to change slightly, which is kind of funny because the complaints stage 2 part, when they actually replied and stated that my letter was on my cabinet, they actually changed it to that because I had stated several times over and over and over again that my letter for that gas safety check essentially was on my cabinet, whereas before, when I never really mentioned anything, they stated it was on the floor. And then before that, there was also a report made by, I can't remember exactly who it was, but they stated that they came, there was a couple of issues, but nothing major, and then they left. And then On another email, they basically says, there was a bit of disruption, but nothing major as such. And then in the last letter they put in, made it sound more aggressive to basically say that, you know, I'm being physically aggressive towards that person, to essentially portray me in a certain way while they're completely lying through their teeth, because we've already got proof several times that they're just lying and putting facts down that are not bloody facts, hoping I will goddamn back down. And also in the video with the particular part where I'll be covering the assault made by the Aberdeen City Council member as well, the other part that will be covered is the fact that when I talked to the police about this particular issue as well, the police actually tried to issue a threat that I would be arrested for a criminal charge if I wanted to prosecute the City Council member for committing an assault and also breach of Article 8 of the Human Rights Act. So they're essentially using coercion and intimidation to ensure that I do not press charges towards a City Council member.